Today we will be discussing the risk and liability that exists for dental hygienists. We will also be reviewing the sections of a policy to look out for when selecting a professional liability policy provider. The presentation is put on by BMS Canada Risk Services, who is the exclusive provider for the CDHA insurance program. This presentation is provided for general information purposes only and does not constitute professional broker advice. Full terms and conditions of the policy, including all exclusions and limitations, are described in the policy wordings, a copy of which can be obtained from BMS. The BMS team is dedicated to working with associations and their members. We have been a proud partner of the CDHA for almost 10 years. In that time, our team has connected with thousands of dental hygienists to assist them with their insurance needs. Our brokers are available to help you through a variety of channels, including a dedicated phone line and email address, which we'll share at the end of this presentation. We also have a program-specific website where members can learn more about the insurance products available to them and where you can secure your professional and business-related coverage. Over the past 10 years, the CDHA program has grown exponentially and now represents over 18,000 participating members. One of the many benefits of being part of a member program is access to specialized support, including for legal defense and claims handling. Members can access the free legal telephone assistance available through Gowling WLG. Gowlings is a national law firm and is the preferred legal partner of the program. Hundreds of dental hygienists have secured their legal representation to defend against claims the insurance company has paid out millions of dollars associated with under the program. The key points we'll be discussing in the next section are: why do I need professional liability insurance? The types of professional liability claims and how insurance responds, and the key considerations when evaluating insurance policies. Why do you need professional liability insurance? Unfortunately, as a professional, mistakes can happen, and you can be found legally liable for the damages sustained by any person arising out of malpractice, error or omission in providing or failing to provide your professional services as a dental hygienist. The CDHA policy provides coverage for the cost of your legal defense and the sums that you are legally obligated to pay as damages because of an injury, act, error, or omission to which the insurance applies. There is a regulatory requirement to hold professional liability insurance in order to be eligible to practice as a dental hygienist. Malpractice claims occur where their professional is required to respond to a statement of claim threatening legal action alleging professional negligence, error, or omission. The CDHA professional liability policy provides coverage for legal defense costs, damages, patient compensation, and settlement costs. In the table, you'll see the limits that are available under the CDHA program specifically. The policy also provides a few key policy details, including a full scope of practice, meaning there's no requirement to practice under direction or supervision of a dentist, and there's a Canada-wide coverage territory, which means there's no restriction for the place of work or your scope of employment. The above details are specific to the CDHA program, and it is important that you evaluate your specific policy to ensure these elements are included. As a dental hygienist, you are regulated and governed by a regulatory body that oversees your professional behavior. Your college has guidelines and standards of practice that dental hygienists must abide to. This is an area where a patient or anyone can turn to make a complaint against you and your services. Anyone can make a complaint: a patient, a colleague, or even a friend. Legal expense claims are college complaints where the dental hygienist is required to respond to a complaint or investigation from a provincial regulatory body or governing body. Examples of legal expense claims are unprofessional behavior, biased or discriminatory treatment, failure to obtain informed consent, to name a few. These types of complaints or claims are covered under the CDHA professional liability program. We see regulatory complaints often under the program, and these can range from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for defense. Dental hygienists who are not insured under the CDHA program will want to make sure their professional liability policy covers this type of claim, as not all policies do. The next type of claim is criminal claims, and while uncommon, we do see these types of claims occasionally. This is where the dental hygienist is charged with a criminal offense related to their professional practice, for example, a sexual assault. You may find yourself in a situation where you need to defend yourself in an investigation, so encourage you to contact BMS to start the claims process and secure legal counsel if you are facing any type of complaint. The purpose of the regulatory body or college is to protect the public through the licensing, regulation, and discipline of their registrants. Registrants must abide by legislation, regulations, and bylaws, as well as the Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice. There are several outcomes that can occur from a complaint, and some examples include the claim being dismissed entirely, an investigation occurring, a referral to the discipline hearing, a referral to fitness to practice, or impose restrictions, limitations, sanctions, or education on the dental hygienist. In our first example, a complaint is made to the municipal health authority that a dental hygienist and other professionals failed to follow infection prevention and control protocols. The health authority notified the applicable regulatory colleges, and the college appoints an investigator. In this example, the outcome is that the registrant is provided with legal assistance and response to allegations is successful. $33,000 are paid by the insurer for defense costs. The CDHA's professional liability insurance policy provides $75,000 per claim for legal expense coverage, or $150,000 per policy year. So this claims example would be covered under the CDHA program. In the subsequent example, a complaint is made to the provincial regulator that a dental hygienist did not follow proper COVID-19 protocols, attended work while sick, and wrote down false temperature numbers. The college advises the registrant of the complaint by mail, requesting a written response to the complaint within 30 days. In this example, the outcome is that the registrant is provided with legal assistance and response to the allegations is successful. $32,000 are paid by the insurer for defense costs. Again, within the CDHA's professional liability policy, there is $75,000 allocated to legal expense coverage, or $150,000 per policy year. In our final example, we review a criminal claim. In this instance, the patient accuses a dental hygienist of inappropriate touching. The patient contacts the police to have criminal charges brought against the dental hygienist. Under the criminal claim coverage, there is $150,000 per claim and $150,000 per policy year. The difference between this legal expense coverage and the regulatory legal expense coverage discussed previously is the policy will only pay out if the insured is found not guilty. Not all professional liability policies will include the same coverage, and it's important to know which elements to look out for when reviewing professional liability policies from different insurers. Under the professional liability policy through CDHA, we've discussed a few of the key considerations on this slide. Firstly, for professional liability coverage or malpractice, you want to ensure that you have up to $5 million per claim. There is a full scope of practice. Under a coverage territory, we offer a Canada-wide policy that is not limited to your place of work. And lastly, the automatic additional coverage for legal expense and criminal defense claims. In the next section, we'll be discussing individual or non-practice specific professional liability, what a retroactive date is, and what extended reporting period or tail coverage is. Why is an individual or non-practice specific professional liability policy important? If you have an employer or practice-specific policy, there may be limitations. Some of these include the policy only responding to claims for work done in the employment setting. It may only respond to claims for services delivered under direction or supervision, for example, under the direction of a licensed dentist. There may be missing key coverage elements, some of those which we have discussed, and it may also not offer coverage for prior services or claims that were made after the policy expiry. This means there could be some potential issues in some particular situations. For example, if you're working at multiple employment sites, there may not be coverage for every site. There may not be coverage for a claim related to volunteer activities. Another potential issue may arise if you're working outside the scope of your employment or work or not under direction or supervision. For the last point, we are aware that some other program insurance policies do not include coverage for defense of college complaints or criminal claims. These important coverage elements are often also missing from employer insurance policies, where the policy is generally focused on defense of malpractice or civil claims only, and the insured dental hygienist would be left to coordinate and pay for their own legal defense against a college complaint, for instance. Similarly, other program policies and/or employer policies often don't respond to claims that come forward based on the work the dental hygienist did before they became insured under that policy, which is an important consideration if moving from one policy or insurer to another, or for claims that come forward against the dental hygienist after they retire or discontinue practice. A few claims scenarios for consideration. In the first example, a dental hygienist changes insurance policies after working for several years. 3 years later, she is sued by a client she treated while insured under her previous policy. Does she have coverage for this claim? It's important to look at the insurer liability language in your policy, as every insurer may not be liable for work done before you were insured with them. In this instance, you're looking for the retroactive date of the policy. In the next example, we see that a dental hygienist is sued 2 years into retirement by a client he had previously treated. Does he have coverage for this claim? The recommendation here is to check your policy language to ensure that it includes an extended reporting period coverage. For ERP, we might need to look at the definition of non-practicing status in the policy, as some policies provide ERP coverage for the dentist only. In the following slides, we'll go over these coverages in additional detail. We'll first discuss a retroactive date. If there is a retroactive date on the policy, the wrongful act or incident that gave rise to the claim must have taken place on or after the retroactive date for coverage to respond. The retroactive date is the earliest date on which injury or damage may occur and still be covered under the policy. There is no coverage for claims resulting from events that occurred prior to that date. Under the professional liability policy for the CDHA program, there is no retroactive date. Now, not all policies will have a retroactive date, so it's important to check your certificate of insurance or talk to your broker or provider. Some policies don't specifically list a retroactive date, but the wording may include language that limits the insurer's liability to claims that are based on acts or omission that occurred when you were covered by their policy and not before. For an extended reporting period, or ERP, this extends the time period which claims may be made or reported to the insurer. The CDHA policy automatically provides a 2-year extended reporting period for new claims that come forward after you have retired or discontinued practice. This includes when taking a maternity or parental leave, in respects to acts, errors, or omissions committed prior to the expiry of your last active policy. Each provincial regulator or college will have their own requirements when it comes to professional liability insurance. CDHA, in partnership with BMS, reviews the regulatory body requirements to ensure that our coverage fulfills the needs of each provincial regulator. The regulatory trends that we see are typically around having a mandatory individual or non-practice specific policy, carrying higher minimum limits, or requirements around their extended reporting period or tail coverage. For example, in Alberta, they require a $1 million per claim limit with a $5 million per policy term or aggregate limit. They require a 2-year extended reporting period coverage, and an individual professional liability policy is required, which means they can't rely on a supervisor or, for example, a dentist policy. In Nova Scotia, a $2 million limit is required, but a $5 million is recommended. They also require a 2-year ERP, and an individual professional liability is required. Lastly, in Ontario, in addition to their requirement for a $1 million per claim limit and a $5 million aggregate and the 2-year ERP, they also require that the deductible is no more than $4,000, in which case under the CDHA policy, there is a $0 deductible. They also have a requirement for coverage for therapy and counseling for victims of sexual abuse, which is also included under the CDHA policy. It's extremely important to review your regulatory requirements against the professional liability policy that you hold to ensure that you're not in breach of any requirements outlined by your regulator. When reviewing your policy, it's important to review the key considerations. We've now added to the list retroactive date, extended reporting period, coverage, and the deductible. Under the CDHA program, as discussed, there's no retroactive date, the extended reporting period coverage is 2 years, and there is a $0 deductible. BMS is happy to review your professional liability policy against what we offer to members of the CDHA at any time, and on the following slide, we'll provide the contact details in order for you to do so. There are several benefits to being a member of a group program like the CDHA program. Firstly, you have access to a specialized broker who understands your practice. Specifically, we can answer any questions related to your coverage, as well as assisting in setting up insurance products. So if you are an independent contractor or you're starting up a dental hygiene business, we understand the coverage that you need for your specific practice scenario. In addition, we can assist with reporting a claim or potential claim, or helping you obtain a copy of your certificate of insurance or the policy wording. CDHA members also have access to a pro bono legal hotline provided by Gowling WLG. Gowlings can answer any of your questions related to privacy and confidentiality, conflicts of interest, how to respond to requests for information from third parties, and they can also answer any questions about ethical and professional obligations. Their number can be found on this screen. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation today. If you have any questions about the material, please reach out to BMS. You have access to a dedicated phone line and email address through the CDHA program. Our phone number is 1-855-318-6557, and our email address is cdha.insurance@bmsgroup.com. Thank you so much.